Welcome to the CBS Chicago special presentation, The Race for Mayor 2023. I'm Irika Sargent.
And I'm Joe Donlon. In 3 weeks, voters will go to the polls and vote, and it is a crowded field. 9 candidates in all, including the incumbent, Mayor Lori Lightfoot. Joining us now to discuss the candidates, the key issues, is Alderman Leslie Hairston. I'm between 2 lawyers. I don't have a chance.
No.
But 24 years
Yes.
on the council.
Yes.
You decided this year not to run. We're thrilled to have you as an analyst.
I'm
for
thrilled to
election
be here.
night. Let's start with just a personal question. Why now to pack it in?
Well, you know, it's time. It's time. I had a life before now, and I've got a life after this. You know, I think I have served the community well, and so at some point I wanted to do more of the work and not deal with the other side of it. And so now seemed like a good time.
Yeah. Well, 6 terms. We have the fortune of having you here with us now that
Yes.
you are retiring. Just want to give a little lay of the land in terms of the city council and then move on to the mayor. So including your seat, about 1/3 of the current aldermen are not running again. Some of the incumbents are in tight races as well. So we could see a lot of change in leadership there. And then, of course, we have the mayor's race. So if we start with that, Mayor Lori Lightfoot, where she stands 3 weeks out from Election Day. And given the polling that's going on, you know, a lot of times you can't really rely on that, but they all seem to be in consensus in saying that her approval ratings are down significantly.
And I've heard that, unless you're looking at her poll, which shows her ahead of everything. You know, I think that's important. I'm not a real believer in polls because nobody has ever called me. And the people that I talk to, nobody's ever called them. And so the way that you can arrange the questions are always so that you can come out on top. We already know that. But I still think it's too early to tell. You know, I know what they say, but I just go back 4 years ago and what all the pundits were saying and everybody was saying who was ahead and it's a landslide, and that's not what happened at all. So I am very cautious this time about ruling anybody out. I mean, I think at this point, everybody still has a shot.
A shot. Who would you say has? Do you think there are 4 or 5 people could potentially make it?
Absolutely,
through to the runoff?
and it depends on what you're looking at. You know, one of the things that I've been looking at, because everybody now is a progressive. I don't care whether you say you're a Republican, like one of the candidates did year ago or some years ago, and now it's something different. You're either on one end of the spectrum or you're on the other. And that being the case, then I think what the people need to be looking at is where their values are as a candidate. You know, what do you care about? Not just in your stomp speeches or just saying the rhetoric, but actually where are your values? And then the next question becomes, how does that apply to me? And so I think we're going to see something different. I think we're going to see something different.
Of the candidates who are running 9, which let's just put it on 4 or 5, you think have the best chance to move on?
So, you know, I can't really say the 4 or 5 definitively because there's something about each of them. I look at 2 of my colleagues, you know, in council. They definitely bring more to the table than some of the others. I look at some of the ones that have been in the council way back when, and council has changed a lot. I look at people that have been within the administration when it was under the machine rule. That is not who we are today. So there are a lot of pros and cons. And again, I bring it back to the people. This is going to be the one that the people decide. Because last time they thought they were getting something and they didn't get what they voted for. And
so?
Well, they were voting for change. I mean, they got a change in the mayor, but they didn't get a change in the policies and the way that City Hall operates.
Do you find that there are still a lot, in who you talk to, undecided voters that are really going to wait for these last 3 weeks to put down, you know, that final answer? And if that is the case, who do you think that favors for those who haven't made this selection yet?
So I think that there are a lot of people that have not decided. There's some that they are pondering certain candidates over others. But I also think what I'm hearing now is that those that aren't necessarily with the money that are on TV and commercials, they're actually being heard. And that's why I caution everybody, because people are actually listening, and they're not listening to the same old rhetoric.
When you talk about those on TV, with Brandon Johnson, major backing from CTU and the American Federation of Teachers, we see him a lot on our air, and there are others who have the same.
Those are two sources.
Yes, yes. So what do you think the strategy will be going forward for those who do have the money and for those who don't?
Well, I don't know what their strategy is. You know, I know.
It seems like crime is the strategy. That's what everyone's doing.
Well, crime is, but you're not going to solve crime just by hiring more police. And I think everybody talks about hiring more police. It's a lot more complex than that. And so I do give credit, to those candidates that are talking about more than just hiring the police or taking the cuffs off the police. We've got to have, responsible policing, and constitutional policing. But at the same time, if we're not recruiting the police, if we are not hiring police, and if we don't have a way to pay the police, then that becomes a problem. The people that are entering the academy are not at the same numbers that they have been in the past. Also, the race and ethnicity of the candidates that are coming are not the same that they've been in the past. So I think as some of the candidates put, I want somebody to look like me. Well, if those people are applying, then there's a possibility. But if they're not applying, so it's more complex than that.
You said this was an election for change 4 years ago, change that didn't come.
Yes.
Is that why so many aldermen have decided not to run again, in your opinion, or why is that?
Well, I can't speak for all of them, but I do think that it has definitely been more difficult. It has been more uncivil than ever before. And most of the people that get into public service actually do want to do good, want to help people. And I think that it was a challenge to do that for most of them.
How so?
Getting things done. My favorite is, it's taken me, 2017 to last week, 2 weeks ago, to get a left turn signal up.
Does that have anything to do with how the mayor is working with the council or not?
Well, the mayor is not working with the council, and that has been one of the criticisms since the beginning.
Would you say that this is more extreme, though, than you've been in it for over 2 decades? There have been times when there's been more of a consensus between the mayor and the council, and others where there's clashing. But would you say that this is something you have not seen before?
Well, this is definitely something that I've not seen. I was not a part of the machine. I have never been. I've always been independent, so that has not, really bothered me. But I think that once this administration came in, once the aldermen were sworn in, I think they really wanted to try to help her to do a good job. Nobody wins if we don't win as a city. And so I think the resistance to take suggestions has been hurtful. I think the lack of civility has been problematic. And, that's unfortunate because people actually do want to do good work. And at the end of the day, it's the citizens that suffer.
You would say that I've heard people say under Rahm Emanuel, there was sort of a contentious relationship between the council and the mayor. But when things needed to get done, there was that cooperation and willingness to work together that hasn't existed over the last 4 years. Do you think that's been part of the difficulty?
Well, I mean, I don't think that.
Which part of it?
Well, because everybody had their difficulties. Everybody had their difficulties. If you weren't in lockstep, then you had difficulties. That's not new. But I think the way in which it has been handled has been different.
There's more of an abrasiveness?
There's definitely more of an abrasiveness. There's lack of communication with the staff. They're everything, and it's disorganized. It is disorganized.
So if we talk for a second, you mentioned the council. Lori Lightfoot has still been able to pick up some endorsements from members of the council. Brandon Johnson's gotten quite a few. Do you think that any of that plays a role? When we talk about Paul Vallis having the support of the FOP, do you think that will sway voters when it comes to deciding in 3 weeks?
Well, I don't know what will sway the voters. I go back again 4 years ago where there was union support for lots of people, and that didn't seem to matter. I mean, what that support does is says we're going to try to get you X number of votes, whoever our membership is. That doesn't necessarily reflect the will of the people. It can help, but it doesn't necessarily reflect the will of the people.
How do these candidates who are maybe polling, for whatever that's worth, near the bottom, but who are good candidates in your opinion, how do they break through in this crowded field?
Well, I think they continue their message, trying to get their message out. I think that a lot of the debates that have been held has been advantageous for them because they're able to get their message out when they otherwise couldn't. But I also think that, you know, we need to give fair time to all of the candidates. Sometimes we get wrapped up in who we think the leaders are or who somebody says, and we don't really listen to the message. And I want to take you back to the values. We've got to look at the values of these candidates because everybody's going to say, you know, crime is number one. How are we going to do that? How are you going to achieve that? We've had, you know, millions of dollars for crime, but if you're not spending it in the proper locations and you're just holding on to it, you're not making a difference trying to solve crime. So, you know, we need to delve deeper into that.
If we're talking about the 9 candidates as they stand, looking back over, say, like the last month, even prior to that, do you think there are any missed opportunities or missteps that you've specifically seen with any of the candidates so far?
Well, I mean, their missteps have already occurred, you know, so that's history and that is, you know, fact. You can't undo that. So I don't know that any one of them has done anything. Maybe Willie Wilson, you know, hunting people down, not such a good thing. But, you know, his base is going to be loyal to him no matter what.
What do you make of the ad campaigns that we've seen so far? Because we did mention that crime obviously is issue number one on top of mind for several people, but Mayor Lightfoot seems to be focusing on Chuy Garcia, his connections to Madigan and Freedman Bank. Do you think that's an effective ploy, or should she be out saying, look, here's what we've accomplished and here's what I'm running on again?
Well, I haven't heard her say this is what I'm running on again. I have not heard that. And
that's my point. Do you think she should be?
I think she should be. I think she should be. I mean, you know, I think pointing out what Chuy Garcia has been around a lot longer than she has. You know, everybody knows his history. You know, you can't reach back 30, 40 years and say, well, somebody was something 30, 40 years ago, and then now they got caught stealing candy today, and so that makes you a bad person. I mean, that just doesn't make sense. And people are used to that. I think people really are not paying attention to that. They're numb to that. They want answers. They want a safe community. We want a safe Chicago. I want a safe Chicago. Let me tell you, it makes no sense that people, and I talk to my friends, I have women that don't carry purses anymore. I have people that get in before the sun goes down, that gets out of the loop after hours. You know, people want to be able to move about. We were already had COVID for 2.5 years. I mean, not that it's disappeared, but where we were severely restricted, and now we can get out, and now we can't get out. And if we do get out, then we're afraid of being killed or we're afraid of being carjacked. That should not be.
When you talk about the clashes that would happen between Lori Lightfoot and the city council, it makes me think of some of these abs where all of a sudden we saw a softer Lori Lightfoot. You know, there was a catch in her voice, maybe a tear in her eye. Do you think that that is at all effective given what people have seen for 4 years?
No.
They have short memories.
No.
Yeah.
No. And
simple as that.
You know, quite frankly, that is not who she is.
Yeah.
She's a matter of fact. This is what it's going to be, and this is how we get it done, and this is how I'm doing it. So that is not who she is as a person. I mean, I always tell people, be true to yourself, right? So that's not who she is.
But it's what I think people in Chicago want, at least an element of, in their mayor, right? You have to have some of that edge to you. Where did she go wrong on that?
Well, I don't think you go wrong on anything in terms of having an edge. I mean, you have an edge or you don't. I mean, we all have an edge. It depends on where that edge is.
Okay, she has an edge. What's wrong with that?
Well, it's not, but when it gets to be disrespectful,
okay,
when it gets to be, you know, we are still a public body. When it gets to be mean, when it gets to be hurtful, when it gets to be bullying, then there's a problem with that.
Do you think that's why some of these 15 aldermen have left?
I'm sure it is, in my opinion.
If we talk about some of the candidates, I know you said you don't have like a top 4 or 5, but there are some that are very grassroots, say like Jamal Green, and some of the others like Willie Wilson. While he has the money, you know, in some ways people may say it's not quite as sophisticated a campaign. But do you think that people have a certain draw to that, knowing that it's not part of those who are the machine or are making the money? Do you think they have any chances in this race?
I don't know. I really don't know. I hear actually in some of the candidates, their vision, and I think that there's a learning curve there. And so I think we haven't heard the last of them. In terms of Willie Wilson, I mean, money doesn't win elections. It helps. But, you got to get your message out, and I'm not sure his message is really clear. I'm not sure that it's clear. I mean, again, I go back to the values, right? And, everybody is, quote unquote, progressive, even if they aren't. And so you have to see who's on the right end and who's on the left end.
Let me ask you this. You've been in it 24 years, so you've had an up-close front row seat to this. For these 9 candidates who think they can be mayor, one has been mayor, the others think they can. What is it that they think they understand that they don't, having been in it, right? Maybe they're saying one thing that they're going to do or 2 things they want to accomplish, this policy, that policy. What about that's unrealistic because they haven't been there?
Well, we haven't really heard much about policy. We really have not. And so for those candidates that have not been in city council at all, they don't know. They don't know the magnitude of it. They don't know, heck, some of them don't even know the city. They don't know the city.
Who would that be?
They don't know the city.
Okay.
I'm going to leave it at that. They do not know the city.
Yeah.
Will you endorse someone?
I don't know. It is still too early. I know we're a couple of weeks away, but it's still too early because things come out every day. And I think that it's important or it's prudent to see what happens and to listen to what the candidates have to say. I mean, I'm really listening to what they have to say. Again, I'm getting back to that value. I want to hear what the values are that they're talking about.
Okay. So before we wrap up, we've talked a lot about the mayor. Are there any races in terms of the aldermanic races that you really have your eye on at this point, where you think there could be an upset or there's someone that you want to see, particularly if we're talking 5th Ward here?
Well, I do, it just so happens that I do have an interest in one of the wards in the city, and that would be the 5th Ward. And yes, I am endorsing a candidate. I am endorsing Desmond Yancey for 5th Ward Alderman.
Did you ever think about running for mayor?
Yes, I did.
How long ago?
It was a while ago.
Why not more recently?
All right, well, then you get it. I'm a write-in, right? Because there are not enough candidates in the race. You heard it here first.
Is there a reason you wouldn't?
Yes, there is a reason I wouldn't right now. Number one, I would like to take my experience and my expertise and my knowledge to help other people. I don't want to be in the front. I actually want to do the work to help make the city a better place. And I think I can be more effective on the outside than on the inside at this point.
Okay. All right. Well, Alderman Hairston, thank you for joining us. Your insights
Thank
are
you.
great. And hopefully your conversation will help voters make a big decision.
Value.
And we look forward to having you with us on election night.
Thank you. I look forward to being here. That should be fun.
Thank
It
you,
will
Alderman.
be. And thank you for joining us for this special.
I'm Joe Donlon along with Irika. Stay with CBS Chicago for coverage leading up to the election and on election night, which of course is February 28th. And in addition to our newscast on television, you'll find a lot more information on our website, cbschicago.com.
We'll also see you during our newscasts every day, 5, 6, and 10.